every competitive Pokemon rule set will have a meta. We'll have powerful Pokemon and teams that will be popular and see widespread success. However, dedicated trainers will be able to find some anti-meta niche picks that can take the competitive scene by storm. In today's video, I will be going over some anti-meta picks, some niche Pokemon that have done well in Regulation H, and that I believe will continue to do well as the meta continues to develop. The first Pokemon I want to be talking about today, and I am so excited to talk about, is none other than Sableye. Sableye is such a fun little prankster, little trickster Pokemon, and I probably said this before. This is just a complete side note. Sableye has some of my favorite idle animations in game. Like Sableye just be like bop 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 bop. Yeah, I don't know. I ever since I have seen this little guy, I just absolutely adore Sableye. And we did actually see Sableye get top 8 at the Frankfurt Regional, and Sableye is a very good support Pokemon, right? Sableye does have Prankster. Sableye is a Dark and Ghost type, meaning only has one weakness, being the Fairy type. And before Fairy type existed, that meant Sableye had 0.00 weaknesses, but now we live in a world with the Fairy type, so Sableye does have that one weakness. But Sableye being a dark type prankster means that you cannot prankster taunt the Sableye, right? So if you are facing down a Whimsicott, let's say, that Whimsicott would more than likely be faster than your Sableye, meaning that Whimsicott could get a taunt off. However, Prankster does not work on dark types. So being a prankster mon that's also a dark type, much like Grimmsnarl, means that you cannot be prankstered. This also means Whimsicott can't go for Encore on you, all that kind of stuff. Can't go for fake tears or anything like that. Additionally, I do want to talk about, so we do see Grimmsnarl. We would see Grimmsnarl usually more often than we would see a Sableye, especially in something like Reg G, Reg I, and even the little bit of Reg J I've played. However, in this meta, we are kind of seeing Sableye start to do well. Like I said, Sableye did get top 8 at the Frankfurt Regionals, and Sableye has a fantastic move pool, right? Sableye has access to Taunt, Disable, Reflect, and Light Screen with the Light Clay, meaning your 2 screens will stick around instead of for 5 turns, will stick around for 8 turns, which is absolutely massive. Additionally, Disable, I kind of talked about this in multiple of my videos, but both Disable and I believe Sableye also does get the Encore. So both Disable and Encore are just such disruptive moves, right? We have lots of setup Pokemon in Regulation H, right? You have Golden Go, you have Annihilate, you have Archaludon, all that kind of stuff, Volcarona. There are so many very good setup Pokemon, and just being able to click something like the Disable is huge, especially on a Pokemon like the Annihilate, right? Because Annihilate usually has a fighting type move and a ghost type move. So being able, let's say you can disable their ghost type move and you have let's say you can disable their fighting type move and you have a normal type on the field. All of a sudden, this Annihilate is absolutely useless against your normal type Pokemon, right? So, just can be a really, really disruptive move. Sableye does have access to the Encore and the Disable strat, where if you've never played against this, I envy you. I genuinely envy you, because what happens is your opponent will click Encore, you are forced to go for the same move, let's call it Nasty Plot. You're forced to go for Nasty Plot, and then we'll click Disable, so then you can't go for the Nasty Plot anymore, so you are forced to struggle. So this combination, rather diabolical here, but just really cool to see Sableye do well at the highest level of competition, and Sableye is definitely a Pokemon that has, what would you call it, like 4 move syndrome, you know, very similar to a lot of popular pranksters, very similar to Whimsicott, very similar to Grimmsnarl. It's like you could run, so the Taunt is the set that did well at Frankfurt, but like I said, you could run Encore Disable. You could even run, Sableye gets Fake Out, you could run Fake Out, Sableye gets, like foul play, right? Sableye gets foul play, Sableye gets snarl. There are just like genuinely so many moves that you can go for and that you can choose with the Sableye. And it's really hard to prep for all of them, right? And I think that's one of the reasons that makes Sableye such a good shout on this list. So if you want to try, like, if you're interested in a different kind of support mon, a different prankster mon, if Whimsicott doesn't really feel like your speed, I would definitely say give Sableye a try. Next, I am so excited. We are going to move on to Greninja. We did get to see, while I'm recording this, the Pittsburgh Regional Championships is actually still happening, but I believe it was day one. I didn't get to watch a lot of day one. I like kind of watched a lot. Today is Sunday. I'm recording this on a Sunday, so I watched a lot today, but I believe it was day one. We got to see Greninja Annihilate, and what an incredible combination. Greninja just put in legitimately so much work in that game. Because sometimes when you have a niche pick, right? Sometimes when your team has a niche pick and you're on stream, the audience, like, we don't always get to see the niche pick, but being able to see the Greninja in action put in so much work was absolutely incredible. So what this is, right? Ghost Terra to dodge the fake out, then you have Water Shuriken, your loaded dice Water Shuriken. So just like loaded dice would work on Scale Shot, this means you will be hitting 4 to 5 times, and on this team there was a Terra Water Annihilate. So what you can do is you can go Terra Ghost, you can go Water Shuriken into the Annihilate, or you could go Terra Water Annihilate. Click, if you're not in danger of fake out, click Water Shuriken into the Annihilate. You get at least 4 stacks immediately, so it works very similar to Beat Up, and then boom, just like that, you have a 50, 100, 150, 202. You have a 250 BP base power move just coming at you turn 1, right? So I think that's super cool. We also got to see the Rain Dance. So Greninja's really fast, right? Greninja has a absolutely blistering 122 speed. So not a prankster, but very, very fast. So being able to set fast weather can be super disruptive if your opponent has a sand team and wants to go fast with their Excadrill, or has a sand team and wants to take resisted damage, or take less damage on the special side with their Tyranitar, boom, you have weather control. Or, you know, if they're a sun team, boom, you have weather control. And then the Dark Pulse just to round it out. So just a super, super cool Pokemon, and I just think this, and also the Haze is great into the Dozo, Haze is great into other Pokemon that want to set up, whether it be a Golden Go, whether it be a Archaludon, anything like that, can just be, whether it's a Dozo, like, it can just be so, so, so good. So I absolutely love running the Greninja this way. You're kind of running like a support Greninja set, and that feels weird to say considering Greninja doesn't really have the best, like, defenses to stick around and be supportive, but sometimes all you need, as proven in the streamed match where we saw Greninja, all you need is 1 or 2 good turns. You just facilitate the Annihilate, you just facilitate the other Pokemon, and that's really all you had to do. So super cool to see Greninja do well. I know people, like, absolutely love Greninja, so super cool to see it do well in competitive. And now on to, speaking of favorites, now on to one of my favorite Pokemon, probably my favorite bird of all time, Corviknight. And Corviknight has done super, super well. Sorry, I have some notes here, so I, like, make sure I get the numbers right, that these, like, I literally have my little notes, you can't really see, okay. But next, we do have the Corviknight, and Corviknight did get 13th at the Frankfurt Regional Championships, as well as top 4 in the first VR tournament, so I know a VR tournament took place last weekend, but the one before that, and then also got 15th at Monterey. So really performing very well, multiple regionals, multiple tournaments at the highest level of competitive Pokemon, right? And Corviknight is one of those Pokemon that I think is so good because of what the meta looks like right now, if that makes sense. Like, I think Corviknight has a good ability and has a fantastic moveset and good typing just generally, but seeing that it takes, you know, resisted damage from steel type moves from the Golden Go, seeing that it takes it takes neutral damage to Sneasler's Close Combat, and it takes 0 damage from the Dire Claw, and it takes resisted damage to the, if it's acrobatic Sneasler. It takes resisted damage to that as well. It takes resisted damage to Blood Moon Ursaluna's normal type moves. It takes no damage from ground type moves unless they can catch you on a roost. But, you know, I think, like, it's very, very well positioned into the meta. It's incredibly good into grass types, into Rillaboom, and we have seen almost every single team that does well at regionals has a grass type Pokemon. Whether it be a Sinistcha, whether it be a Rillaboom, whether it be a Jumpluff, whether it be a Moongus, like, the grass types are running a rampant. So Corviknight is just so good into those as well. Additionally, I do want to shout, kind of similar to Sableye, Corviknight has so many good moves that you can run. This is, I believe, the set that did well at Frankfurt with the Covert Cloak, so you protect yourself from Fake Out, you protect yourself from anything like that. That would also mean, like, if you went for the Dragon Terra, you are protecting yourself from having a status move hit you with the Dire Claw. Huge. So you feel like it's less punishable to Terra there. And this Corviknight ran Brave Bird, Taunt, Roost, and Tailwind. And I love the Tailwind. I know Corviknight's not the fastest Pokemon, like 67 speed. It's funny, just going from Corviknight to Greninja with that 122 speed, kind of nasty out here. Corviknight sitting at that 67 speed. If you are taking the Corviknight taxi, you'll get there. It's reliable, you will get there. It might just take a day. Bring your Switch, it might take a minute, you know? So with the Corviknight, I think it's really important to note that Corviknight can give you your speed control, that Corviknight has the Roost for staying power, that Corviknight can taunt, meaning no Trick Room for your opponent, meaning no Tailwind for your opponent, meaning no setup moves for your opponent, and I think, or no redirection for your opponent. I think that's really, really huge. Being able to disrupt their game plan with the taunt can be absolutely massive, and then you just have a very powerful 120 base power speed, 120 base power stab move. You do take recoil, but that's why you have the Roost, right? But I do want to shout, the other version of this team that I believe has done well is something like the Bulk Up. We are in quite a physical meta, right? You know, I know that Golden Go is very popular, I know that Archaludon's very popular, but aside from those, some of the most used Pokemon are going to be that Incineroar, are going to be that Rillaboom, are going to be that Sneasler, are going to be that Annihilate, are going to be that, what's the fish? Oh, I can't think of what the fish is called. The fish! I'll put it on screen here. Bah! Are going to be the fish. So those are some of the most popular Mons in the format, and being able to increase your defenses so you can take those attacks better and then also heal up the damage that they are taking time. Ursaluna, that's another one, that they are taking so much time to get into you. Like, that's a really, really powerful setup to be able to go for. Additionally, we could also see something like the, maybe it's a Tailwind, we could see, I've seen Power Trip. Power Trip is a really interesting move. So you get plus 20 power for each of the user's stat boosts. So Bulk Up, you're getting 2 stat boosts right there. The Power Trip is also kind of fun because this gives you a way to hit the Golden Go for super effective. So they can Terra to not take super effective damage from the Power Trip, but then more than likely they're going to be taking neutral damage to something like the Brave Bird, right? So this is a Mon that I just think has so many options. You could also run, you know, Leftovers. You can run Leftovers. You can run, I think Lumberry is kind of fun. You could run Lumberry. You could run Citrus. There's so many options for the Corviknight to run. And I just think Corviknight's such a fun shout because I have seen it absolutely, like, 2v1, 3v1 games if you can get it so that your opponent's Pokemon just can't take down your Corviknight and the staying power just gets nasty, you know? So I'm really happy to shout out Corviknight here, and like I said, there are so many different ways to run Corviknight. I also want to give Corviknight a shout for the Mirror Armor. I think a physical Pokemon that can't be afflicted by Intimidate is always going to be powerful, right? So not only do you not take the Intimidate, but you also reflect the Intimidate back on, if it's the Incineroar, you reflect the Intimidate back on the Incineroar, you reflect the Intimidate back on the Salamence. Whatever is intimidating you, they actually end up eating the Intimidate. So I just think that's really cool. Okay. You know, after Monterey, after Monterey, it would be remiss for me to not have at least one member of the Monterey winning team on this list. I've chosen the Garganackle. I do think that, Sylveon is a great shout. I do think that Scyther is a great shout, but I've actually chosen the Garganackle because this Pokemon nasty, right? This Pokemon, like the Maranga Berry is super cool. Maranga Berry means when you get hit with a special attack, your Spadef raises. So you get to raise your special defense and then you get to recover, once again, off all that damage your opponent has tried to go for. I think the Salt Cure is probably the most important thing for a Garganackle to be running. I think that's, you can't argue to run anything besides the Salt Cure. This deals, it's a 40 BP move. So, like, the thing is, I feel like sometimes people forget, Salt Cure, like, actually does damage. If you're not intimidated and you can get a Salt Cure into, like, a Incineroar, or if you can get a Salt Cure even into a little Volcarona that's 4 times weak, the initial attack actually does damage. It's not like Toxic where it doesn't do damage when it touches you, and then it adds up. No, this literally does damage, and then it adds up. I also do want to talk a little bit about, so it takes 1/8 of your max HP each turn. Unless you are a Steel or a Water type, then it takes a 1/4. I have talked about this so much. Defensive Terra Water is one of the best Terras in the game throughout all of Scarlet and Violet to go for. Just being a bulky water type, just water is a really, really good defensive typing. So you can really prey on that. You can really prey on that with the Salt Cure. Additionally, Steel, what are two of the most common Pokemon right now? It is the Goldengo and it is the Archaludon. Boom. And both of those Pokemon want to stick around. Both of those Pokemon want to, the Goldengo sometimes can be run at, specs, but ultimately want to stick around, want to either set up and get off huge damage or just get off huge damage. Boom. I hope you enjoy losing 1/4 of your health literally every single turn. So this is the exact set that did win Monterey Regionals, that Stefan Mott did use to win Monterey Regionals. And we do see the Stealth Rock here. I think the Stealth Rock makes a lot of sense on the team he was running because, we saw Yawn, so you can kind of Yawn trap them. You set your Stealth Rock, you click the Yawn button, then they have to swap out or go to sleep, they take Stealth Rock's damage. It's a heinous, vicious cycle. But I think unless you're running something like that, I think the wide guard can definitely be useful. We definitely don't see as many wide moves in this meta, but you do have things like we're seeing a lot of Alolan Ninetales. You do have Icy Wind, you do have Blizzard, and so that not only does it protect you from damage, but it also protects you from being frozen, which I think is really, really big. Additionally, we have Make It Rain is huge. There is Earthquake, everything like that. So I do think that depending on what team you're running, a wide guard could be useful. Even maybe something like a Rock Slide can be useful. For the most part, you're going to be, unless you're in Trick Room, you're probably going to be moving last with your Garganackle, yeah. Boasting 35 speed. So you're probably going to be moving last, again, unless you're in Trick Room. But the Rock Slide, it will just add up damage. Let's say you Salt Cure the Pokemon and you're already pretty much recovered. You just get to click more damage, this means you don't let them get a foothold in the game because you're just clicking lose your health every turn and I will click a move. But you probably, what I mean by going slow is you just probably won't have those flinch chances. Okay, so Baxcalibur's another Pokemon I wanted to shout out. I feel like Baxcalibur was actually pretty more common was more common in the first part of Reg H for a similar reason that something like the Dragonite was common, right? Because you have this big stab multi-hit move. You actually have 2 of them. Big stab multi-hit moves. Ice Spear just doesn't have a benefit and or a drawback, however you want to see +1 speed minus defense. It's both, really. But that way, any Pokemon that is sashed, I'm really naming Sneasler, but it could also be something like a Sash Whimsicott, where you can break Sash and then also KO that Pokemon. It definitely does feel like the Sash Sneasler variant is falling out of favor a little bit in the meta, but I would say never counter out. never count Sash, Sneasely, Weasley out, you know? So I just think that's a Pokemon, I just think making sure you have a really pretty decent answer to it is a plus. Terra Ghost, you can Terra Ghost, and Bax did get 18th at Monterey. You can go Terra Ghost, meaning you are immune to your fighting weakness, and you do take resisted damage from the Dire Claw as well. I also just think having, like, really kind of big, like, this is 40 BP. I like how it says usually goes first. Big 40 BP stab priority move. Like, I do think having priority moves can be very important, because speed control's big, right? So sometimes, even if your speed control gets a little bit out of hand, like if you let your opponent get Tailwind and you can't keep up with their Tailwind, or you let your opponent get Trick Room and you are faster in Trick Room, or slower in Trick Room, faster outside of Trick Room, you know, you get to say, like, I don't care about speed tiers, I'm clicking Ice Shard. I'm clicking Vacuum Wave. I'm clicking Grassy Glide, all that kind of stuff. So I really do just want to give, Baxcalibur a shout. Additionally, and I know, like, a physical Pokemon that can't be burned is also kind of big. Like, I have to say, having a physical Pokemon that can't be slowed down by burn, pretty big. Additionally, get an attack boost for every fire-type move that you take in. So if you can position well and you think, oh, that Incineroar is going to go for Flare Blitz, let me just get my Bax in. Like, let me get Baxcalibur in, let me get a Spicy +1, and I don't even have to worry about the burn. So I just really wanted to shout out the Baxcalibur here. Baxcalibur, I think, is just a super cool Gen 9 Pokemon that I just wanted to talk about a little bit. Chat, you knew. This is a Lucky Wolf list. You knew some form of Psy Spam was gonna sneak in here at some point. So obviously, we did see the Espathra get top 4 at Frankfurt, right? And then we also saw the same team do, like, maybe get top 20 at Frankfurt. Like, it was both the same team, one just happened to get top 4, and one happened to get, I think, top 20, I believe. But really, this is just my shout for, like, a fast Psy Spam user, you know? So Expanding Force, Illumina Crash is also super cool. 100% accurate and lowers the target's SPDEF by 2. That can be so huge. If you can get Illumina Crash off and then Expanding Force next turn, or if you get Illumina Crash off and even if your Espathra goes down, you can bring in one of your other special Pokemon to really be able to take advantage of that. Dazzling Gleam, this way you can hit the Dark types for super effective. So you have your coverage moves. Your speed boost, so let's say something outspeeds you turn 1. You just protect. You can just protect. And then, more than likely, you will outspeed at turn 2. Or, you can attack turn 1, and then protect turn 2, and you can outspeed at the next turn, you know? So, just the ability to literally raise your speed one stage just at the end of every turn just naturally is such a good ability for just being able to outpace your opponents. You know, so Espathra's on this list, but I could definitely put Executor if I could type. I could definitely put Executor on this list. This is another, you know, if you have Chlorophyll going, this is another fast Psy Spam user, and we did see this top 4, I believe it was Louisville. I believe we saw Executor top 4 the Louisville regional in the first part of Regulation H. So just like, you know, another really good shout. And I'm just really shouting out fast Psy Spam. That's really what I'm doing. Additionally, what if, you know, we could also go Espeon. I actually did see Espeon win a Limitless Tour and then get top 6 at another Limitless Tour, and then also get, like, 1688 in the most recent Grand Challenge. So, like, fast Psy Spam is very, very, very real, and even though it may not be the Pokemon you're thinking of that will use it, I think there's a lot of options for you to be able to use fast Psy Spam. I absolutely had to shout out Hisuian Zoroark on this list. Another Pokemon I just love because I think it's, like, sick. I just think this Pokemon is so cool. Having Illusion, you know, a really, you know, the Zoroark ability, really a one-of-a-kind ability, and then having a one-of-a-kind typing in the normal and the ghost. And like I was saying earlier, we are seeing Annihilate do well. We are seeing it's real. Annihilate is extremely, extremely real in this meta. There are many ways to run Annihilate, but just having a Pokemon that is immune to the two types of moves Annihilate usually runs. Annihilate usually runs fighting move, immune. Usually runs a ghost type move, immune. So being able to disguise, first of all, being able to disguise your Zoroark and then making your opponent waste a turn, if they bring their Annihilate, making your opponent waste a turn, going for a move that won't hit you, and then just knowing they literally cannot hit you with that Pokemon the entirety of the game, I really, really do think that is very useful. Additionally, Zoroark can be run multiple ways. Zoroark did get, I believe, 9th at Frankfurt, 3rd at Monterey, and then also was on the same top four Louisville team that the Executor was on, and did get top 4 at Louisville in the first part of Rank H. So we are seeing this Pokemon do well. It's not a common Pokemon, but we are seeing this Pokemon do well at multiple regionals, and I just think it's such a fun, like, this is just like a fun pick, right? I think the illusion makes it fun, and I think that Hisuian Zoroark has access to outstanding moves. So you have Bitter Malice. This has 100%, it's a 75 BP move. That's already pretty good. And then it has a 100% chance to lower targets' attack by 1. Like I said, we are in a really pretty physical meta here. Having, 5 of the top 6 Mons at Pit be physical attackers, I believe. So, being able to slow them down, being able to get massive stab hyper voices, being able to be your speed control, and Hyper Beam. So this is the set that did well at Frankfurt, but you could also run, if you wanted to run something like a Will-O-Wisp. If you wanted to run Will-O-Wisp, even though, they both do similar things by slowing down attack, but, we do have Pokemon like Annihilate, for example, that would be getting a boost from that. So, if you would rather go for the Will-O-Wisp, you can click Will-O-Wisp on that, or you can click Will-O-Wisp on something like a King Gambit that also has Defiant. So just as a way to not give them the Defiant boost, but still be able to slow them down. And you could even, disguise yourself. Let's say your opponent leaves Mouseape, right? You could still disguise yourself as something that they maybe wouldn't think they have to follow me for, and then you get your Will-O-Wisp off. I just think that this Pokemon is very cool and has a lot of really good tech. You also get Dark Pulse, you could be fishing for some flinches. I believe that the Hisuian Zoroark on the top 4 Louisville team was Specs, so you could run something like this. Maybe instead of the Icy Wind, you run Shadow Ball to just be able to get huge stab Shadow Balls off. But a really fun Pokemon that I really wanted to give a shout, because there's just something, I don't even know how to put into words. It's just tricky. It's just a fun Pokemon, a really, really unique Pokemon with a really unique ability and a really unique typing that I feel is really well situated in this meta right now. And next, so this is a little, I would say Hisuian Zoroark is a little bit less of a super niche pick, but I do feel it's a little bit anti-meta, right? Because for an Intimidator, we are mostly seeing Incineroar, right? Incineroar is the peak Intimidator that we are seeing, has been in the top 10 usage of every single regional for Reg H Day 1 and Day 2. But I really wanted to give Hisuian Zoroark a shout because Hisuian Zoroark! Hello! Hisuian Arcanine a shout, because I do feel like they do slightly different things, right? So this is Hisuian Zoroark with oh my gosh, this is Hisuian Arcanine. I'm so sorry, pal. I am so sorry, pal. I swear I know who you are. So, this is, this Hisuian Arcanine is run with the Mirror Herb with a Rock Slide, just 3 attacking move, Rock Slide, Flare Blitz, Close Combat. And I like the Mirror Herb because this means if you intimidate something that has Defiant, if you intimidate a Pokemon like King Gambit or like a Annihilate, you also get the boost. You copy their boost. And then you get to hit them back with really strong attacks, right? Additionally, the Rock Slide does hit something like the Incineroar, super effective. Flare Blitz hits both really popular steel type, super effective. Additionally hits uh, all these grass types, super effective. So definitely just want to give this mon a shout. But I do know another, I believe on, so Justin Tang did really well at Monterey with a Hisuian Arcanine, did really well at Toronto in the first part of Regulation H with a Hisuian Arcanine, and Pit is still happening, but was doing very well at Pit with Hisuian Arcanine as well, but I believe was using Clear Amulet, and I also like the Clear Amulet, right? You're just saying, like, my Hisuian Arcanine is here, I'm gonna spread Intimidates, but also you can't slow me down. I'm a Fire-type physical attacker, no burns, 5U, and then also no Intimidates 5U, right? So just using Arcanine as a strong attacker, you know, additionally, like, Extreme Speed is a very good move. You get Extreme Speed. So Hisuian Arcanine has access to some very, very good moves. And just like I was saying, I do really like, and I think Protect's very good, but I would definitely, if I were going to run a Hisuian Arcanine, I definitely consider the Extreme Speed. I think it's just for my playstyle. I definitely like to play teams that, like, I rely on a couple Pokemon to just blast holes through my opponent's team, and then I can kind of close out with some other with the mons that I have in the back, or I can I don't have to care about their speed control because I definitely feel like I can rely pretty heavily on my priority moves. So definitely just wanted to shout out Hisuian Arcanine because I think it's another great fire type intimidator that's not Incineroar, you know? Okay. We do have the Haunted Keys. We do in fact have the Haunted Keys here. And much like Sableye, this is just kind of a niche, kind of like a very good anti-meta prankster support mon. Doing a similar thing, we see Light Screen and Reflect, just like we saw on the Sableye. We do have Dazzling Gleam, so, like, here's the thing. Legitimately, 80 special attack, and its stab, like, this Dazzling Gleam, the chip, if you do go for a taunt on the Klefki, like, the chip damage is actually very real and is going to add up. But here's the thing. The Klefki has the Misty Terrain, right? So Misty Terrain, so good, just absolutely walls out a lot of Psy spam. Additionally, hurts the Rillaboom, hurts the damage output, no more priority Grassy Glides, all that kind of stuff. So I think the Misty Terrain is super, super helpful. Additionally, if you are running physical attackers on your team and you don't want to run, and they're not fire types, and you don't want to run defensive Terra Fire, then you have Misty Terrain to protect them from burns, right? Like, or to protect them from sleep. If you feel like, oh, I don't want to run safety goggles, or I don't really have any natural immunities to Spore or Sleep Powder, boom, you have Misty Terrain, protects you from sleep. So I really wanted to shout Klefki here. Klefki did get top 4 at the Monterey Regional Championships, and I think, like, so one of the reasons I think Klefki is so good is, like I said, because of how well it does into Psy Spam, and you might be saying, like, oh, but doesn't Grimmsnarl do an even better job into Psy Spam, as Grimmsnarl is a Dark type and actually immune instead of taking resisted damage? I would say, like, yes. On the surface, absolutely. But here's the thing about the Klefki, right? Klefki is a Steel and a Fairy type. And so if you're thinking about Psy Spam, if you are thinking about, like, hard Trick Room Psy Spam with Hatterene, or with, even with a Spothra, right? That has whose 3 attacking moves are 2 psychic moves and Dazzling Gleam. Well, the Grimmsnarl will take super effective hits from the Dazzling Gleam. However, your Klefki will still take resisted hits. So Klefki not only resists the psychic type moves, but also resists the fairy coverage moves, which I think is, like, why Klefki is so well positioned in this meta as well as a really good support Pokemon. Ooh, okay, Hydreigon. Okay, Hydreigon. So we actually did see Hydreigon do very well at Frankfurt as well, because it was a Hydreigon on that same Spothra team, right? So that means Hydreigon did get top 4, as well as, like, I think it's maybe top 20, top 25. But I think Hydreigon can fit so nicely on a lot of teams, kind of in a similar way almost to the Corviknight. This is the exact set that did well. This is the exact set that did well at Frankfurt, and this set doesn't have Tailwind. This set does have Taunt, which is fantastic. Having Safety Goggles Taunt, meaning if your opponent wants to try to lead something like Rage Powder and Porygon 2, or Rage Powder and Trick Room Setter, you just say, no, I'm not interested in being Rage Powdered, I'm not interested in being Spored. I will get the Taunt off on your Trick Room Setter, and there will in fact be no Trick Room for you, which is I think why the Safety Goggles is so good. I like the Snarl, you can slow down special attackers, super effective into Golden Go, and then the Draco Meteor for just pumping out your own big damage. It does lower your special attack by 2 stages, but it is a high crit chance move, so even if you have to click it a couple times, you can still fish for a spicy, dicey little crit. Oh darn it, I meant to do this before the... Sorry about that. Sorry. I had to do that before I started the video, but regardless of that. Additionally, I think one of the things that makes Hydreigon so good in a similar way to Corviknight is Levitate, is being immune to ground-type moves. We are seeing so many Pokemon weak to ground do very, very well, right? Golden Go, weak to ground. Archaladon, weak to ground. Incineroar, weak to ground. Sneasely Weasley, weak to ground. I'm sure there are many, many more that I am not thinking of, but those are 4 of literally the most used Pokemon. The most used Pokemon in the Regulation H meta. So I think, like, we are going to start seeing ground-type moves and ground-type Pokemon rise a little bit, right? I definitely could have put something like the Excadrill on this list, or even Garchomp on this list, but those don't feel super. Those don't feel as niche as some of these Pokemon. So I think, like, having a way to be able to swap into ground-type moves, or to be, even if you want to run your own ground-type Mon, like if you want to be running your own Ursaluna, you get to click Tailwind and EQ. And that just feels so, like, if you want to run Tailwind here. That just feels so well situated in this meta as well. So I just really wanted to give Hydreigon a shout. I just think Hydreigon is very well situated right now to be doing well. But Hydreigon's not the only niche dragon we are seeing. If you are looking for a Intimidate Pokemon, and Incineroar doesn't quite fit on your team, which I know you're saying, like, how can Incineroar not fit on a team? But it happens sometimes, okay? It happens sometimes. If you're looking for a niche Intimidate Pokemon that is also immune to ground, like maybe you don't want to have more ground-type weaknesses, and also gives you Tailwind, can I interest you in a very nice Salamence? So, we are also seeing Mence do well. Mence got top 25 at Frankfurt. Mence got, I believe, top 8 at Monterey, earning like 160 CP at that regional. And again, kind of like I was saying with the Hydreigon, Mence is one of those Pokemon. Intimidate is incredible. We are in a very, very physically oriented meta, so being able to get your Intimidate off and then also having your Tailwind feels really good. Dual Wing Beat is an absolutely incredible move. We saw it on the Scyther that did win Monterey Regionals. Dual Wing Beat is really nice. Again, you get to stab, you get to hit all those grass types for super effective. Additionally, if you are running into a Sash Sneasler, you get to break the Sash and KO if they don't Terra. Super effective into the Annihilate as well, and we are seeing Sash Annihilapes also kind of rise in popularity, so being able to bot one hit break Sash, bot second hit KO if you're able to do so. And then Rock Slide, your Salamence is pretty fast, boasting, 100 speed and in Tailwind, so you can definitely fish for, like, you get spread damage and you can fish for some flinches, so pretty good all around. And I just think, like, a decently well-positioned Pokemon in this meta as well. And last but not least, I do want to talk about Meowscarada. And I actually think Meowscarada is, like, very good right now. I think Meowscarada is very, very good right now. Meowscarada did boast 12th at the Monterey Regional Championships as well. This is actually a Sash, and that set was a Sash Overgrow set, meaning that when you are low health, which you could, like, live on your Sash, then your Grass-type moves are getting 1.5 times damage output. So already, Flower Trick is a 70 BP move, but guaranteed critical hit. No accuracy check is really nice as well. And then if you're hit to your Sash, you're doing even more damage. I think additionally Knockoff is really nice, and it was run on a Pledge team, so running the Grass Pledge, because the way the Pledges work, Meowscarada is boasting a massive 1-2-3 speed, right? So if you want to set Swamp, and I think Swamp is very good, Swamp is the Grass and Water Pledge, and it does lower the opponent's speed. Well, I'm gonna get this wrong. it halves the opponent's speed, I believe, but it really, really lowers the opponent's speed. And so it's just like a fantastic form of speed control. So the way the pledges work, Meowscarada moves first with that massive 1-2-3 speed, and then pulls the water type move with it. So like even though, like, let's say it's Meowscarada and something like the Primarina that is much slower, it doesn't matter how slow the Primarina is, it only matters how fast the Meowscarada is. So I think being able to set that up is pretty huge as well. Knockoff is fantastic. You know, there are very few Pokemon that actively want their item to be knocked off. A lot of Pokemon really rely on their items, whether it be leftovers so that you stop the Pokemon from getting health back every turn, or if it's a citrus berry for the exact same reason, so you can pick up really important KOs because the opponent doesn't get that healing. All that kind of stuff. Whether you want to knock off goggles or something so you can sleep powder, whatever it may be, knockoff is very good. And I just think, like, as I have said, Incineroar is one of the most used Pokemon, is one of the best Pokemon in Reg H, and then I have also shouted out 2 other Intimidators. So even though Intimidate is very popular, Flower Trick doesn't care about Intimidate because crits bypass Intimidate. So I think having a Pokemon that can just guaranteed live a hit with the Focus Sash and then get off some, that's also very speedy, and get off some massive damage is really decently positioned. Additionally, if you, like I've been saying for my past several videos, defensive Water Terra is incredible, and people are using it. We've seen it on Ursaluna Blood Moon, we've seen it on Annihilate, we've seen it on Golden Go, quite common on all of those Pokemon. So if you can bait your opponent to go for their Terra Water, and then you get to bring in your Flower Trick, and because Meowscarada is a grass-type Pokemon, can't be Rage Powder or anything like that, or you can go Ghost to avoid a Fake Out, like, it just feels like a really fun bait if you can bait your opponent into going for that and then hit them with absolutely massive crits with the Flower Trick. I just think it's like really good with all the defensive Terra Watermons we are seeing right now. And so those are the 12 Mons I wanted to shout out. Technically it was slightly more than 12 Mons because I had to talk about size spam a little bit extra, but I will catch you in the end of this video for just some of my final thoughts on the meta and kind of where it's heading. Those are 12 of my anti-meta niche picks that I really wanted to talk about today. I honestly, Regulation H is one of those regulations where I think so many different Pokemon have value and can work. So please let me know in the comments down below if you'd like me to make a part 2 to this, because I definitely could. I could talk about Drifblim, I could talk about... there's legitimately so many Mons that I could talk about, so please let me know if that's something that you'd be interested in, and thank you all so much for watching. I really do appreciate that. I've been having so much fun with these videos, so all the love on them really does go a long way, and if you did enjoy, please feel free to leave a like, comment, and subscribe to the channel. I'd really appreciate it. That's gonna be it from me, so I'll see you in the next one. Okay, bye!